Hey there, SimpleShot fans, Nathan here. We've got something really exciting today that we've been working on for quite some time. So you're probably aware of the Scout, the original Scout Slingshot that we introduced in 2012. This is not it. This is the next one. This is the ScoutX. So one thing that people really loved about the Scout XT was its versatility. It was large enough for a beginner, but not so big that folks that were really into slingshots found it cumbersome. However, some folks did want a little bit slimmer slingshot. Some folks wanted a little bit narrower forks. So eventually in 2017-18, we released the Scout LT and brought you some new shapes, some new ergonomics with the removable scales. But it became time to bring you something even better. So we went to the drawing board, and more importantly, we went to Mark Seljan. We said, Mark, this is what we're looking for. These are our criteria. So our criteria for design. We wanted the same geometry, the same dimensions as a Scout XT. It's a very popular slingshot. It simply works. Why mess with a good thing? So the fork gap, fork width, they're all nearly the same. We also really like the fact that the Scout XT offered the beginner or the advanced enthusiast an opportunity for multiple grip styles. However, we know the Scout XT wasn't the best for a full pinch grip due to some of its angularity. We also found that the Scout LT was really popular with the removable scales. Not everybody wants a full palm swell, and a lot of folks prefer to do a wrap of some sort with paracord or some type of cordage around the handle. So when we went to Mark, we said, we've got a couple of things that have to be in this design. One, we have to keep the geometry the same. We want the removable scales, and ultimately we want a really functional integrated clip. Now, an integrated clip in an injection molded slingshot is something that has not been done very often and has never been done well, in our opinion. We've knocked it out of the park. So we've got great geometry, great engineering here. Mark is just an absolute astounding industrial engineer. And we've created a slingshot that gives you the opportunity to have a really low profile without the scales. But more importantly, we've added dedicated sighting references. So slingshots have evolved to the point where people are requesting more and more to have a very precise and dedicated sighting reference. So we've decided to use fiber optics. Fiber optics are the gold standard. However, they've never been executed really that well. The fiber optics that include enough fiber in the system to be bright are oftentimes fragile. We've eliminated that. Mark's done a great job of figuring out how to use enough fiber to give you a nice bright sight picture through the over the top and through the forks orientation, along with an integrated clip and removable scales. So we're going to offer this slingshot in a couple of base colors. So the frame will come in green, which is our original green. It's been with us for a long time, really popular. A new color in our color palette, we're calling this one Slate. It's got a greenish hint to it, a little bit gray. And of course, Henry Ford's favorite, black. Now you're noticing here that those scales might be glow in the dark. You're right, these are glow in the dark scales. So we've got 10 different colors of scales that will come as options, scales and clips. So the scales and clips come as an accessory. All slingshots come with standard black scales and clips. You choose your frame color, then you can upgrade as you see fit for different colors if you like to accessorize or you're stylish. If your fiber were to break or wear out, it's really simple to replace with a pair of scissors and a cigarette lighter. We sell replacements, and every set of extra clips comes with fiber already installed. So what you've got here is a modern slingshot that accommodates almost everyone's needs almost all the time. So the ScoutX from SimpleShot Mark Seljan Design. We are profoundly proud to bring this to market. We can't wait to see how this evolves over the next 10 years, and we really feel honored and privileged to be your Slingshot supplier. So thanks for taking a look. Get out there and enjoy the new ScoutX from SimpleShot. All right, so welcome, Mark. Glad to have you here. So today we've got you on the line to talk about the new ScoutX Slingshot, and you are the man that helped bring this to fruition. And I know a lot of people are going to want to know what went on in your design mind as we went about developing the Slingshot. So I know I came to you saying, hey, it's time to make the Scout XT, the original Scout, to give it an update, to refresh it. And I had just a handful of design criteria that I handed to you. But really, you came back and knocked it out of the park. So if I recall correctly, we've been working on this well over a year and a half now, I believe.
Yes, yeah.
So
yeah.
The original was integrated clips. That was something that was a mandatory. We had to have an integrated clip system. One of the complaints we get about the Flip Clip X, which I do want to talk about more because you were instrumental in designing that, is that it's too bulky. So integrated clip is certainly the way to go there. We had a lot of success with the overall shape and aesthetic of the removable palm swell of the LT, so we wanted to bring that in. Then more importantly, we wanted to keep the overall design, I don't know if ethos is the right word, but the design feel. So when you recognize it, you're like, no, that's a Scout, but it's a better Scout. So I handed that to you basically, and we went back and forth with iterations for, wow, I think well over a year before we committed to the final design.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was a great thing. I like when there is a tough brief, and this was the hardest. I think the hammer was really close, but this was the hardest because the bar was so high with the original XT, and the versatility and the popularity of the frame it was really, really demanding to set a mind on it and start working. But since we have a great background, I also spent a lot of time because I made that review. So there was a review competition that you opened, and I was one of the persons who created the review of the Scout. So I received one early on. I think it was before the flip clips, and I received the flip clips after that. And it was a great thing, and I've seen on the web how is it working. And honestly, I was surprised by the whole design because I had a feeling that, okay, there was an original that was kind of a handmade original, and someone made a design overlay or engineering overlay of that. And I wanted to understand how this thing is working. So First of all, I started to carving the Scout and strip it down to see what the structure is, and I tried to grab it, and I rebuilt it in 3D quite a couple times. And this is why it actually took that so long, because I started over and over again. This is, we've been talking about the iterations a lot and so many things on challenge, but to really understand what is the essence of the Scout, I had to model with different techniques. I had to grab a file and send down things and parts and see what it gives. And that was really interesting. But so in brief, it was a real and exciting but really hands-on experience of that. And how it was started. So how you made that?
Yeah, so the Scout started out, actually came to be before SimpleShot did, really. We had the Omega design, which was a flipping out design. The reason we called it the Scout was at the time I was thinking the Boy Scouts are a rifle shot market for slingshots. Little did I know at the time that the Boy Scouts of America are scouting worldwide. They don't hold a very friendly view of slingshots. Mm-hmm. So what I was looking for there, though, was I wanted to call the Slingshot the Scout. And I was trying to emulate the fleur-de-lis shape of the scouting logo and the shape of the Slingshot. There's some elements there. I wouldn't say it's a one-to-one by any means. But I was at a trade show for manufacturers, just walking around trying to learn about different ways to manufacture slingshots, because I quickly realized that making them by hand was not a scalable business model. You just can't make them. You can't make enough of them without burning out. And came across a fella out of Louisiana, Ash Industries, and he recognized what we had. He recognized that we had a great slingshot. I think he recognized my enthusiasm, but also this guy, he was just a great guy. And he said, "Hey, I can make this for you in plastic. Send me a model." So I worked hard to create a handmade model, and I'll try to dig up some pictures of it. I know I've got it in the archive somewhere, but that handmade model, I suspect, is quite similar to the new ScoutX. But this guy, he had no, he was a firearms guy, so he had no relationship to slingshots. And he was doing me a huge favor by building this injection mold tooling. Actually, it worked out to be a trade. I was going to teach slingshotting at a boys' survival camp that his church put on down in Louisiana as part of the exchange for him building the tool. So when he built the tool, he did not dive in and try to recreate all the smooth lines, the contours. And what we got was the original Scout, which is a little bit angular, but the fact is it still works really well. My design criteria at the time was I knew that the way into the market was to find a slingshot that was usable by the most number of people. So I wanted something that could be hammer gripped. So that's something that the original Scout, the Scout XT, has been able to do, as well as a fork supported or a full pinch grip. So this is what we got. It's not at all what's similar. It's the same dimensions. It's the same general shape, the same general feel, but it was much more angular. And that's kind of how the Scout came about. And then the market grew. And fortunately, within a year or so after that, I met you. And that really changed our approach to design.
Yes. And honestly, there were so many things over the years. This was about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so many things changed. The shooting style changed a lot. The focus shifted from power to accuracy, or not just shifted. I think accuracy is always top in a sport like this, but the importance compared to the accuracy is a little bit shifted, and people recognized a lot that with the lighter bands you can shoot better, and right now we can shoot fairly good with a good efficiency, and then that helps a lot, and it completely changed the ergonomics of slingshots, the visual, the accuracy of the tips, the pouch sizes, and many things, and the whole tactile and the whole feeling of it. It's not that robust. It's still there, and it has to be strong and reliable, of course, but it's much more like an instrument, just like in music. So there's so many things. It has to be really refined that way, and that's what was one of the biggest challenge. Actually, I started the first version of this ScoutX. I started with so many things in mind, because the brief was so okay. Basically, the first, I've just read the line that he wrote, and it was like, well, we are up to creating the next iconic slingshot.
Yeah.
And okay, now let me break it down. So, and I tried to build it up with different approaches. So usually, I like to design carefully in the engineering software all the dimensions and meticulously align them to be able to fine tune all the stuff once I'm really close to the shape. But if there's a complex task, the only thing that you can do is close your eyes, go ahead and try to make a finished model as soon as possible, then watch it, spend some time with it, and this is why it took so long. Spend some time with it, and then just start over. And it's like, it's really hard emotionally that you made something that's almost ready and you have to start over. And this has happened 2 times at least with this one. And actually, the very first time I started to build it in CAD, just to understand how the shapes are working, because it's really hard to some measurements. I'm really curious how the angles are designed and other things. Why is it working? So I have to understand why is it working, and I can't do it if I don't see a number behind it. So I rebuilt it 3 times with completely different technologies and approaches, and finally I was able to carve it. And even we had a knowledge of the LT, because LT changed up many things with the different size. But LT was somewhat a kind of a different way to get around, because because the size was more compact, and it offered a lot of other things in novelty, because it was a change. But when I've heard that, okay, we are ready to go over and create a new model of the Scout, the Axe, then I was okay. I have to make something very similar, but much better, and we need nuances. And that was just okay. I have to take a deep breath. So that was it.
Yeah, the one time during the design process that I recognized your profound depth of skill and commitment to the design process was when I asked you to change the this profile here off of the fork tip to thicken it up a bit, and use non-countersunk fasteners. And although it was just through text, I recognized how crushing that was to you. But what was great, though, is you did it. You accommodated you humored me, and I printed it out. And once I had the 3D printed version of the iteration that I asked you to make versus the one that you presented to start with, I realized how perfect your first iteration was, and how I shouldn't mess with a good thing. And I'm really glad that I had that opportunity, because I don't work in 3D. I work, I take a block of wood and reduce it. I wasn't able to see or feel the nuance until I saw it taken away. And just like your line of slingshots, like the last time we interviewed some of the shapes of the slant or the stylus, they're so very intentional. And you'll find the same thing on this slingshot. And I think it really only matters to a designer, because this functions very, very well. The iteration that I asked you to make still functioned well, but it was not nearly as aesthetically pleasing. It wasn't as nice to touch, to interact with. This is a complete unit here for sure. So your skill there is noted. I want the world to note that this small angle right here is intentional, and I almost killed it. For that, I want to say I'm sorry. I'm glad we were able to keep it.
Oh yeah, that was a small heart attack on me.
I can tell.
Yeah, honestly, I experienced this a lot because there's not many people who working in CAD, in 3D applications, and also working by hand, and this helps. So I'm still drawing this day. I was drawing live model studies and all the stuff, and it helps to train the eye, and even for an engineer, some kind of a drawing and some kind of sculpting is really, really helpful, because otherwise you can't really imagine the things. 3D printing is great, but 3D printing will not give you the full analog contact. So when you take away the material and just touch it, touch it, and millimeter by millimeter, you feel the change. And when I work in 3D, many people and students ask me, okay, how you do it? And I imagine that I have a file and I'm using that in 3D. And all the time I'm thinking of, okay, here's the bench, and I have to scrape off some material. And this helps a lot to make sure that what the final thing will be is actually a real life product and not just an imagination. And yeah, that's the task. So I rebuilt it. And it was hard, but yeah.
Oh, thank you for humoring me.
Thank you. To be honest, to be honest,
but that's what it took for me to really understand the nuance of the design that we went back to. I thought that we were moving forward, and then when I could finally hold the 3D prints, I realized that no, we were already there. And then my concern was plastics. We've got to engineer around the material.
Yeah, because it's very tight. It's very tight. So many things going on in the tip.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you did a fine job when we did our torture testing of our first production samples. I absolutely wailed on these fork tips, and it took repeated hard hits to even begin to damage them. So you were right all along.
Thank you.
And these recessed fasteners. I mean, come on now, that's nice. That's really great. So another one that I forgot to mention, we were throwing out there that I brought to you some design criteria. It needed to have integrated fork clips, which we've got. These are beautiful. We're not the first to do it in the plastic, but we are absolutely the first to do it with such great intention. I think when folks get these, they're going to see that the interface between the frame and the clip itself is rock solid. There's no way for it to not engage perfectly every time. We've got the integrated fasteners, so you can put plenty of torque on it. I'll remind people again that you snug it down, it's going to lock in place. You don't have to hunker down on it. There's no need to break it. But sights. So you and I both, I'll speak more for myself here. I've never been much of one to use a sighting reference just because of my shooting style. However, people, as the sport grows, people are demanding to have some sort of sighting reference built in. And man, you knocked it out of the park here. We had the Axiom X last year.
Yeah. Yes.
That was the first sighted slingshot or fiber optic slingshot in our lineup. And really novel way to do it. You added a lot of fiber in there because for folks that don't understand how fiber optics work, you've got to have the surface of the fiber exposed to light in order to brighten it. So if it's just a dot, it's not going to be nearly as bright as it would be if it were a length. And that's why you see it on both sides, of course. The Axiom X is a touch fragile. It's still protected very well, but the design you did here for this one is outstanding. It makes it so easy to replace. It's quick and simple to replace it if you were to break it. But the fiber is protected, and you've got plenty of fiber exposed to get a really, really bright sight picture. And see, you can see that pretty
it's
well.
visible. It's visible there.
Shirt. Yeah. And then, it accommodates and over the top and through the forks in one setup really nicely. So that's gorgeous. That's beautiful. So that was two of our criteria. The other one was that it needed to have removable palm swells because we found a lot of success with the LT on that.
Yes.
And a lot of folks enjoyed adding the weight, and we will have a weight coming. They're just not quite finished up, but we've got a stainless steel weight. I do need to weigh this. It's a good chunk though, but fits in there nicely. And so for the folks that, prefer a slimmer slingshot, a more pocketable slingshot, you've still got it.
Yes.
You still got the capacity to have a full-size slingshot. If you want a pinky grip, or you could even get 2 fingers in there. Or you can, of course, add the palm swell to it, which gives it some great dimension. Where's the other side here? Look. Oh, and the other cool thing is look at all these colors we've got.
Yeah, so the codes are changing a lot. So LTE was a little bit more straight. I was experimenting with the tooling, the angles of the draft. So it's much more like a classic sandwich approach. But using the experiences, I was able to create a little bit more interesting curvature for the ScoutX.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And that was so. Learning. Make that happen. So that's nice. Yeah. And one thing that I really like, and I was thinking a lot of this, is the lanyard is moved out from that area to be able to give more room for if someone wants to store something, or it also helps a little bit of a gripping. So if you're holding it, you have a grip. But visually it's not that strong, so it don't makes it enormously longer. And the lanyard is not that, I don't say it's disturbing, it's just a little bit, you need to get used to this because there's so much distance here, but that's it.
No, this is fantastic. So during the design process, outside of me changing things on you midway when you thought you had something good, what were your real challenges? Were there any that really stumped you? Is there anything in here that's small that we might just take for granted that, was a real challenge?
The real challenge, the inserts, the placement of the inserts, it was like, oh my God, we want to make it slim, relatively compact, integrated, and we have to add a an insert with enough meat, and also enough meat to grab the elastics, but we don't want to create an oversized fork tip. So it's easy to fit it in an inch. That's it. That's it. Yeah, you have plenty of room. And if it's an inch thick, like a big cube, you can do all the things. And on top of it, this is why I think it was scary. So when you first time you've seen it, okay, it's just, and I made the recess bolts being flush with the surface, and it is really, really close. Everything is fairly tight. And I had to play with all the angles and all the stuff, and also the tooling. So you have options if you spend a fortune on tooling, you can make it, but it doesn't make the slingshot better. Just it won't be affordable anymore. And this is when I recognize that okay, we have to integrate the fibers. Yes, we can do it, but how to make it bright enough? Also protected enough, also easy to change by the user, and as you know that the fibers, if you break them, if you add too much force on it, it becomes fragile, and also it is the light is not that, will not receive that much light, and not emission will be a little bit lower on the side end. So that was one of the biggest challenge. And also you have great technologies, printing, you can create inserts, but it's just somewhat close to a real production stuff. So you can use a lot of materials and a lot of simulation and other things, but it's still some kind of a mind work to feel that okay, if I put a radius here, there will be enough material that can flow through and distribute evenly and cool evenly, fairly. And yes, in the tooling you can do a lot, but the first shape has to be good enough to be able to be produced in a smooth way. So that was quite a lot of challenge. And I was asking myself, okay, what's the purpose of the fiber optics? And I'm learning a lot, and I have eye problems. Um, I was visiting a lot of different optometrists and other people, and recognized that okay, I need the reference myself too. That helps to get a better picture, because I can train my muscles a little bit better if I have something that's a little bit more accurate and burns in my mind. So as I'm recognizing it, and I have also a kind of a target panic that's going on, a heritage from archery, and so many of us are been there, and I've experienced in slingshot as well. That at the level I'm targeting, I see that I need to spend more time, and a reliable side picture helps me to relax my muscles into the shot a little bit more, and it clears my mind somewhat. And this is honestly, this is why I like the two dots, and this is why I like it on the Axiom Max, the two dots. There's something magical in there. See the two, and yeah, because it also helps me the horizontal alignment.
Yep, I was just going to mention that.
And yeah.
Yeah, so as you know, I shoot cross dominant and don't necessarily aim, so to speak.
Yeah.
More of an intuitive style shooter. But with this slingshot, I have been working to shoot in accordance with my eye dominance in a manner that we all consistently understand to be the proper way to shoot a slingshot: horizontal, drawing back to a consistent anchor point, and sighting off of a reference point. And I have been astounded at how quickly I've been able to get on target and be consistent, shooting completely opposite of the way I've shot my entire life by utilizing the fiber optics. It still feels awkward. It feels slow and clumsy, but I can absolutely see how if you are a person that are a shooter, that their style of shooting is to have set reference points, set anchor points. Everybody should have a set anchor point. That these, I guess any fiber optic would do it. But like you say, having the two dots there does give you another reference point to see if you're canting at all. helps you with your alignment, gives you more visual feedback in your sight picture to let you know that you're ready for the shot to be executed. So kudos there. I don't think I'll ever switch over to shooting with my dominant eye because I'm just so used to shooting the other way. But I can see the value. Absolutely.
Yeah, that comes with experience. I'm kind of a dominance issue I had, and right now it seems to be solving. And this the whole journey was a part of it. So yeah, it's valuable. In Belgium, I was shooting without fiber optics, and I was at home at training. I was shooting fairly good, had no issues. But the large conditions in Belgium, we had to shoot in a cage because of the insurance. We were not allowed to shoot just as it is. So it was an indoor tournament within the cage with low lights, and actually the shoot stances were different depending on where you shot, and it was taking toll on me. So yeah, that helps a lot to have a constant, somewhat energetic visual reference. Yeah.
Great. So one thing I just started tinkering with is shooting single strand tubes. I've just been playing with single strand tubes more recently just for fun and entertainment. But I rigged them up on this Slingshot, and it works really well. Have you spent any time shooting single strand tubes, smaller tubes like 1632 or 1842?
Not all the time. I like to shoot tubes with a keychain, with a keychain LT. That's and some naturals. Also, I haven't shot tubes with this one.
Well, it works really well. So,
but, yeah.
For anybody that's wondering, you can absolutely shoot single strand tubes. You could shoot loop tubes if you like, but you're going to be better off basically, I think, cutting the loop and just inserting the two tubes into the clamping position. Yeah. Doesn't work very well wrapping it around the binding post. You certainly can, but it's bulky. Wasn't designed as such. But yeah, it accommodates the tube shooters as well. But flat bands, I think we started to hit on that. Flat bands is really what allowed, I think, our sport to move to where it has today. And prior to the original Scout, there weren't a lot of production. I'm not sure if there were any production flat band slingshots on the market in current production at the time. We were all coming from the background of a wrist brace tubular slingshot, like a wrist rocket.
Yeah.
And that was held as the gold standard. And flat bands opened up a whole new world where we don't need that wrist brace.
And the flat bands that came with the Scout, it was huge compared to the Teraband that was available, at least in Europe or my country. It was such a difference, honestly. Yeah. Absolutely. And
so that was the amber medical latex. It wasn't very robust to stand up against UV or environmental degradation, but that was some good latex. But and we're living in the heyday of latex. The Slingshot latex that's available to us today is just heads and tails above anything we've ever seen. Which really, that one gets me, is I've tried most of the latexes out there, and they're all great, and they're only better by minutia. They're all so much better than TheraBand or amber latex. Yeah. So it's hard to say one is better than the other. They're all so fantastic.
I think consistency. I think consistency is the key. So I've read the forums on the web, and time to time there's a batch that's not the same, and it's a little bit hard to swallow when you are used to something and it's just changing up, and it's hard. So this is why it's good to have a good resource of latex. And yeah.
Well, the challenge with latex, I'm sure there's folks out there that know this, but we specify which time of the year to have our latex manufactured. There's certain times of the year where environmental conditions in the area that it's produced will affect the overall quality and consistency. So we always try to do big production runs in the time of year, and I'm not going to give away our secrets there, but that's one of the things that allows our SimpleShot. I'll give a little toot there for the SimpleShot Premium Black. It's generally very consistent, which is important. If you get used to something, you want to make sure it's the same from batch to batch.
That's
And actually, that's one of the reasons that we stopped using the medical latex, because we're having some big problems with consistency. So, but of course, that latex was not made for slingshots. It was made for other various manufacturing needs. So,
but it's
so
now
we've got,
have.
So now we've got modern latex. We've got modern slingshot frames. This is a conversation I think we had the last time when we were talking about the Seljan series. Is like, where's it going to go? Where do we go next?
Where we go next? We have good latex. We have fibers. We have. I think the Axiom X was an interesting, and it is a very good eye opener in practice. Adjustable frames and ways to customize the frame to fit a little bit better. It's fairly important. So I think that can help a lot, because there's no way you can produce so many different variants like in size. Like there's no. This is one of the reasons why it's important to keep in mind some kind of an adjustability. And yes, we can adjust and fine tune, and there are staple sizes that you can go after, but that helps. If you want to dial down below a 4 centimeter, somewhat in a 1 inch target at 10 meters, then you have to reach, and then you have to fine tune the stuff. And you can fine tune a lot with the latex, and this is why latex is so important. This is why I really do like that, and I think with the Scout and with SimpleShot products, I like that you have a latex that is fairly good from the first to start out. And if you start cutting your own, then you can fine tune it absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is counting millimeters. A few days ago, I've edited a CAD drawing to see how much it changes up if I move 1 millimeter on my poach hold hand, and 1 millimeter is changing up about 10 meters. It can be about 5 millimeter, depending on the frame, of course. It's about 5-6 millimeters off. So just 1
point
millimeter.
Of impact.
Yeah, point of impact. It's just 1 millimeter off. And if you have 1 millimeter here, if you have a latex issue, a thickness change, if the clamping is not clean enough, if wrap and tuck is great if you're used to, and you know how to do it, it's just perfect. You can even fine tune some of the things on the fly, just hanging and grabbing the latex and pull. Okay, I need to pull this one, and boom, and that's it, and you're dialed in. But if you want to go just for the precision, and the clamps can help a lot, and just sliding off the bands a little bit, or just cutting something shorter, and that helps. And I think these solutions will be better. I was thinking of integrated clips, like automated clips that you can push a button and the clip is open. You have a prototype of mine from years, but that was really that's hard. That's hard to push. It works fine. It holds, but it is really, because there's quite a force required to hold securely. And I'm still thinking of these solutions, but it requires a lot of tooling, mostly a quick release type of thing. It's absolutely possible, but it requires, and I'm thinking of how to make it. And maybe a day I'll wake up and okay, now we can make a quick release.
I have no doubt.
Really,
you'll have it.
Yeah, so these are the ideas and thoughts that are going back and forth all the time. And because right now the shape, the culture, the shape of the modern slingshot, I think it's there. And the all-round good designs are, I think they're fairly available. But within those designs and within those outlines, we can do a lot to make it more reliable and more adjustable. Because again, 1 millimeter here and there, it can change and drop you off from the 1 inch target. Which one is?
Right.
Yeah, that's the center of the whole thing.
Yeah, And and one thing we've talked about a lot in the past as well, it's really important that new users that come into the sport don't get discouraged, because unlike a firearm or even archery, there's so many different ways that you can engage with a slingshot versus a bow or a firearm. With archery, your anchor point is going to be somewhere between your nose and your chin,
Yeah.
rarely above or below that. But with a slingshot, you can increase your draw length to full butterfly, or you can anchor near your eye or in front of your nose.
Yeah.
So providing the new user quick success is really important. And integrated clips are obvious. I know anybody that shot wrist rockets in the past, one of their big complaints is, well, when the bands finally go, the replacement process is tedious or difficult. Wrap and tuck is simple for somebody that's done it a few times, but if you've never done it, it can be one of the most cumbersome things
for sure
ever.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wrap and tuck is on its way out. But yeah, coming back around to that, we've never really talked about the Flip Clip X, which we've had out for quite some time now. I think we brought that out in 16, I believe, 16, 17.
Somewhat that time, yeah.
Yeah, so the design criteria there, we were looking for a clip that could be accommodated to any slingshot that had a hole in band grooves.
Yes.
And you knocked it out of the park. I think it's important. A lot of people ask, why is it so thick? And people can't seem to fathom or understand the rationale behind it, but it's thick for a reason. So I can explain it, but you're the guy that came up with it. Why is the Flip Clip X the way it is?
So first of all, the imperial bolts that we are used coming in sizes, and you have to make sure that this is thick enough. And when you just release the screw, you still have to have some room for play. And because it has to fit so many different type of slingshots, not just one, it was like so I had to redraw all the silhouettes, all the contours, all the cross sections, and make something that fits for all these cross sections, and still capable to accommodate the different size thickness of the tip itself. And
There we go.
And it's just simply geometry. So that's superimposing the pictures. I've made about, I don't know, 6-7 different variations, and had to match all of those. So that was quite a challenge. And also, I was thinking of I was thinking of more people will be interested to DIY and modify it. Just grab a file and set it off, because you can so many things do. You can actually drill the hole. You can install the sights on it. This was aluminum, so you don't need any special tools. Actually, I like to carve aluminum with a knife. So that's a lot of things you can do if you feel bulky, and that was one thing. But I think people started to expecting that it has to be perfect, and for that size, it should be that slimmer and other things. And also, we had the holes already, so the diameter of the hole was working much better with the thicker bolts. So that was something that we could do at the time. And the other thing is, it was still a lot of people were interested to use the powerful bands, and it had to be really, really looking tough and being tough for that matter. And it still is. It still is,
and it achieved all those ends.
If you wish, and that's it. You can hold it tight, really.
Yeah, and so long and short of that is the design was very intentional.
Yeah.
Because at the time, still slingshot, the world of slingshots is still a very small niche sport. So to produce a clamping system for every design ever made is quite a big financial burden for a small company.
Yeah.
So that's why I've really loved working with you, is in industrial design is a challenge, a worthy challenge. And I still think the Flip Clip X is a genius design. It functions really, really well across a wide variety of slingshots. But no, it's not the most slim. So,
yes, it's true.
From a functional point of view. And then another thing that a lot of folks always wondered, why did we not use hex fasteners? And I'm still startled why people don't understand that almost everyone these days has a coin in their pocket. So the coin is the tool, people. That's the whole reason that we have the slotted fasteners, is that it fits just about any coin of any nationality will fit in that slot. So instead of having to carry around a hex key. So, wow. So the X in there, I know a lot of people are wondering, I think we talked a lot about it last year, the idea of X, but 2022 is SimpleShot's 10th year in business. And we were really hoping to have the ScoutX to market in 22, but it just didn't, because good things take time. But that's the whole reason. It's the ScoutX in honor of our 10th year, and kind of an evolution, if you will. You'll see an X a lot in our design, and folks can go back and look at videos on where it all comes from. But
yeah, that's it. That's the spot.
So going back on it here, so a couple of things here. We mentioned that we wanted to make sure that we had the elements of the LT. We've seen a lot of folks do really interesting wrappings, so the wrapping is capable there. And as you mentioned, the lanyard hole is different and offset. You spoke to that, but this also offers a lot more opportunity to engage the paracord or whatever wrapping you might use to lock it in, to finish it out. I'm really curious to see some of these paracord masters, what they're going to do with this real estate here. There's a lot of room there to do some really interesting braids and integrating that into a lanyard itself. So that's going to be really cool. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
And the different color sets that you can create, that's amazing. I'm also really interested to see that glow in the dark version.
Yeah.
And that would be awesome. Oh yeah.
So folks have been asking for glow in the dark, so we were able to do that for the scales and the clips. And if you charge it up with a UV light, it does add just enough brightness to light up the fiber. So you can shoot in really low light and still see the fiber using the glow in the dark scales and clips. So I'll be curious to see if that moves things along in a new direction.
I'm pretty sure my kids will take it away. So I will never see if I have any. I don't matter how many pieces I have.
The kids we'll send a bunch of them then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, is there anything else that pops up to mind for you, Mark, as it regards the design, the process that got us to the ScoutX?
The process. Here's the original Scout that I received from you, and I started to carving, and I was really amazed that the shape, how many curves and things is underlying the structure. And if you recognize that this is basically the shape that we just created, but even more roundness. And this is one thing that I like. I like to carve existing frames and just torture them. This way it helps a lot to think through, because it's just really adds to the experience. And honestly, I really hope that this frame, the ScoutX, will be as much fun for everyone around, because it's truly a company. And even if you cannot really use all the features, because it could be really capable to do very, very accurate shots. And even if you are just starting out, it will give you a great. It is a great friend on the go, and I've experienced myself. This is why it's so interesting. It's hard to explain, but time to time I'm picking up the Scout, and many people asking, "Okay, you have so many designs, and I don't know what are you suggesting? And are you suggesting the LT and Torque and all the Axiom frames?" And I tell them that you can use all of them, but please if you're interested, include an XT as well. And now it will be X because it gives something with the size, with the feel of giving some room, especially for if you are interested to learn butterfly and other different styles. It's just amazing to experience and explore. And this is what I really like in industrial design is there sometimes the product is good, you don't know yet how good it is. And as you spend more time, you will recognize it. Okay, this one is, yeah, really. I never thought that is intentional. That was a part of the design, and it's just this recognition is just an amazing experience. And I think and I hope time will tell that this um, new statement of a slingshot product will open up gates.
Yeah, I think the XT will always be a classic, but it's going to quickly be replaced by the X. It's the next evolution. It's definitely, as you said, every time I've shot it, I've been interacting with this slingshot. I guess I got my first prototype close to a year ago now, and I'm still having new experiences with it and shooting it regularly, getting to know it. So I think it's going to offer a lot of slingshot enthusiasts or yet to be enthusiasts a way to find more joy in their sport. And that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Mark, man, we really appreciate you. It's always a pleasure to work with you. Always a pleasure to talk with you. And I can't wait to see you this summer in Gualdo Studio. So
it will be a real
so thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hey there, friends. So thank you so much for purchasing the ScoutX Slingshot from SimpleShot. So I want to get you up and running as quickly as possible, but there's a couple of things you really need to pay attention to get the most enjoyment out of your slingshot. So the ScoutX is a modern adult slingshot that is ideally suited for flat band latex. So certainly you can shoot tubular bands, but you're going to receive 2 flat bands with your slingshot. I want to show you how to set those up. So if you're a long-time slingshot fanatic and you understand the basics, you can probably stop here and you've probably already got it set up and you never watched this in the first place. But if you're just getting started, we want to get you started consistently and well, because the key to really enjoying your slingshot is understanding how it works and understanding why it's not working for you when you have trouble. So here we go. So you've got your slingshot. It's going to come just like this. You've got the slingshot body, which is the green part. You've got the scales, the handle scales. We'll refer to those as scales, as the parts that are here on the front and the back of the slingshot. And you've got the clips. And these clips here are located on the back of the slingshot, or what we're going to refer to as the target side of the slingshot. The reason we call it the target side is because when you hold the slingshot, that part is going to be facing the target. Likewise, the logo, the SimpleShot logo on the front, we're going to refer that as the shooter side of the slingshot. So you got the shooter side of the slingshot, that's the side facing you, and the target side of the slingshot, the side facing the target. Those are our reference points. All right, so you got 2 sets of flat bands here. So these flat bands are optimized for either 7/16 steel, marbles, 3/8 steel, the most common projectiles you're probably going to find. If you're shooting something lightweight like 1/4" steel, or 8mm steel, 5/16, or you're shooting something like taconite pellets or clay, you're going to want to leave these bands long. Better yet, you're going to consider getting bands that are appropriate for that lighter ammo. But if you're shooting something that weighs 55 grains to say 75 grains, which is roughly a 3/8 or 9.5mm steel ball, all the way up to about a 7/16 or 11mm steel ball, these bands are going to be great, but you're going to want to tune them. One caveat here. If you're a brand new beginner, let's go ahead and start with these bands full length. We're going to assume that you're not a beginner and you're going to dive right into it. You're going to understand that you've spent some time shooting your slingshot at full length, not appreciating the power if you've got a face anchor, and realizing that later you're going to need to tune your bands. We've got lots of videos, but we're going to do it really quick. So I know that my draw length is about 30 inches. We define that draw length as the point that it attaches to the slingshot to where it anchors wherever it finishes drawing out. For me, I anchor with my thumbnail in the corner of my mouth. When I hold the slingshot out this way, that's about 30 inches of stretch. I like to see 4 to 5% elongation. So what does that mean? Let's say we have 30 inches, divide it by 3 to 5. That's going to give you somewhere roughly 7 to 6 inches. That's 7 to 6 inches of active rubber in the system. So your bands come about 10 inches long. They will accommodate a draw out to about 45 to 50 inches for those who really like to draw deep. Don't recommend you do that if you're a beginner. If you're already advanced, you know what you're doing anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and tune these by taking off a few inches. So as I said, these are about 10 inches long. I do this a lot, so I'm not going to get out a tape measure, but I suggest you do. In slingshots, consistency is key. But I'm going to remove about 3 inches from these bands to get them to my sweet spot. So use a pair of sharp scissors or a razor blade and cut both bands at the same time. All right, next up, you've got to decide whether you're going to mount your bands in an over-the-top or a through-the-forks configuration. If you don't understand what that means, we'll give you the lowdown. Over-the-top means that the bands will come out of the top of the slingshot, off the top of this clamp. And this top sight will be your sighting reference when the bands are mounted that way. Through the forks is having the bands mounted on the side, thereby making the projectile travel through the forks upon release, and the sighting reference will be this lower one that's going to line up in the middle of the slingshot. I'm going to go ahead and get this one set up and through the forks. That's the way I like to shoot. If you're a beginner, I suggest that you shoot in an over-the-top configuration, and we'll do that next. So what you want to do is use your included hex key to loosen up the clamps. Don't take the clamps completely off. There's a chance that you could drop the fastener and lose it. We've designed this slingshot to where you can loosen it enough to provide plenty of space to get your bands in there. All right, we're going to reference again back to our target side of our slingshot and the shooter side of our slingshot. So we're always going to make sure these bands pull towards the shooter side of the slingshot, which is this side right here. If we're going to set it up on the through the forks orientation, I prefer to have my fingers on the slick side of the pouch, not the fuzzy side of the pouch. So in order to do so, I would orient my bands accordingly. So here I've got the band set up to where the slick side will be on the outside, so I will orient that by placing them in the through the forks orientation on this side first. So I'm going to insert the band until it hits the post. And I'm going to make sure that the band is centrally seated in the middle of the prongs. So if you happen to have your own bands that are wider, that's fine. Just center them up. These bands should fit perfectly. And then once they're in place, I'll just hold it in place with my thumb. At which point I can use my tool to tighten them down. So once you snug it down, just finger tighten it. Finger tighten it's all you've got to do. They will hold. You don't have to torque down on it. They're designed to hold fast. Okay, so we've got one side attached and we're heading for a through the forks attachment. So we can see here, you are now looking at the shooter side of the slingshot, the side that's going to face you. We can see that the fuzzy side of the pouch is facing you, but as we turn this around, we will quickly see that the smooth side will face you, the shooter. That's the side that's going to interface with your fingers. And this is the orientation that we will clamp the next side on. So again, just like the first side, we insert the band until it hits the post. Make sure it's centered up. And then use your tool to snug down the screws until they're snug. Then finger tight. You're good to go. So you always want to check your attachment. So this one looks good. We've got even length of band on either side. We don't have any twists in the bands. They're matched top to bottom. Before we draw them back, we want to make sure they're good. So give them a couple of tugs down low, so if they were to let go, if you'd done anything wrong, they're not going to release in your face. Once you feel confident about it, this slingshot is now ready to shoot in the through the forks orientation. Okay, for the over-the-top installation, it's going to be really important that we reference back to our shooter side and target side of our slingshot, and remember that there's a fuzzy side and a smooth side to the pouch. To get this over-the-top orientation correct, we're going to do as follows. If you've got a table, it may help. So we're going to place the slingshot in a position to where the target side of the slingshot is facing up. We're going to place our band set in a position where the fuzzy side of the pouch is facing up. And this is how we'll attach the band on the prong of the slingshot. So we'll open this up to allow it to accept the band. Keeping our band in the fuzzy side up orientation, we're going to insert the bands until they hit the post and hold them in place with your thumb and tighten it down. Once you snug it up, go finger tight. You're just right. All right, so we've got one band attached. You are now looking at the shooter side of the slingshot. You can see if I pull this band straight up, you are also looking at the fuzzy side of the slingshot. We're going to install the other side exactly the same way, but there's going to be a little bend there. So go ahead and hold it in this orientation so you can see how you need to mount it into the clip on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and move this around. Loosen that up a touch. Insert until I hit the post. Hold it in place. Lock it into position. Snug it down, then go finger tight. All right, now your slingshot is set up in an over-the-top format. You're now looking at the target side of the slingshot. The shooter side of the slingshot is facing me. I've got it set up to where now you're looking down it from the shooter side, you've got a trough. If you can see from here, if I were to release a ball into that trough, it would naturally flow out the front of the slingshot. When the bands release, there will be no twist in the bands. This is your orientation. It can shoot different ways. It can shoot if you've got a twist in the band. But the key with slingshots is consistency. Do it the same way. So if you want to shoot with twists in your bands, always shoot with twists in your bands. But I suggest you don't. Shoot them this way. So now you have learned how to install your bands in the over-the-top format. Over-the-top format is oftentimes easier for beginners to master, but that is not always the case. The key with slingshots is to experiment and have fun. If you're not sure, use a practice ammo like clay or rubber or plastic ammo. If you're really a beginner and you've never done this before, take your time, start with lighter bands, don't tune them up just yet, install them, shoot in a safe place, and most importantly, don't forget to wear your safety glasses and don't forget to install your supplied lanyard. All right, Nathan, so I like to shoot tubular bands. Can I do that with the ScoutX? Yes, you can. All right, so if you're familiar with our products, you've seen our original flip clips, the Flip Clip X. You've probably seen videos on how to install tubular bands, whether they be looped or single strand, using our Flip Clip X or the original flip clip. It's all going to be the same. Never fear, you can shoot single strand loop tube, or excuse me, single strand tubes or looped tubes. So I'm going to show you right here with single strand tubes. Now, if you've never tried single strand tubes, they're great. They really do last a long time. They're soft, they're quiet, they don't tangle quite as much. They're a lot of fun. They add a lot of variety. I'm enjoying shooting single strand tubes a lot more lately. I've actually found a lot of joy shooting them longer with a butterfly style, so that's why these bands are set up as they are. But I do enjoy shooting this slingshot in the through the forks orientation, so I'm going to set it up as such first. So just like flat bands, you simply want to insert your latex, in this case tubular latex, into the clamps until it hits the post. Doesn't seem like it's going in there very far. It's not actually, but these clamps are designed to do one thing, and that's simply to hold latex for slingshot shooting in place. So go ahead and put them in position. I like seating these into through the forks orientation right on the dimp, the aiming dimp. They seat nicely. But go ahead and put that in position, hold it in place with your thumb, and then of course tighten it down. Now you're going to notice that they're a little bit thicker than flat bands, so you're going to have to compress them a touch more. But no different than the flat bands. Get them snug, finger tighten them, you're in business. So here I've got one attached already on the slingshot in the through the forks orientation. I'll do the exact same thing on the other side here, and we'll be off to the races. All right, so captured it in the clamp, lock it down, get it snug, then finger tighten it, and we're in place. As always, double check down here, make sure everything feels good. But now we have single strand tubular bands set up in a through the forks orientation for shooting through the ScoutX. Really a lot of fun. So we're going to do the exact same thing for over the top. And what makes this even easier is because there's no orientation or bias from like a flat band would have, you can pretty much just lock those things in there as you need. So if you want to set your sight picture up to where the bands are closer to the sighting reference or closer to the inside or centered, you can put them anywhere across there in both the over the top and through the forks format. So instead of taking the time to show you how to do the exact same thing I did right here on top, I'm going to let you use your imagination because I know you're smart. You can figure this out. But I do want to answer the question for those who say, what about looped tubes? Can I shoot looped tubes? Sure, there's a couple of ways you can go about this. Now, I don't have a set of looped tubes on me, but we're just going to use our imagination. And this is what a looped tube would look like, this orientation here. So we can go about this two different ways. We can open up the clamps to their max length, somewhere in there. We've got plenty of room. Lift it up and loop it around the post in there. Now, you'll look inside there, you can see that there's a seat, a square seat for the post to sit into. Go ahead and make sure that the square post is sitting in its hole before you drop the bands in there. So you're gonna take your time, gently wiggle it in there, and then start snugging it up. You're going to lose a little bit of length in this orientation on your loop tube. So if you've got a loop tube formula that works really well for you, you might want to add just a touch of length there because you are going to effectively cut off the part that's looping around the tube. And then these two pieces here are going to be attached. So and we can imagine here that this is a looped tube. This can be in an over the top or a through the forks format. I really like this in a through the forks. So yeah, loop tubes will still work. Now, what about tabs? Yep, tabs work just fine. If you're not familiar with tabs, tabs are simply a piece of leather that you would clamp in the same place that a flat band would be clamped. Then you can either tie flat bands or tubular bands to the tab. And a tab can be nothing more than a pouch cut in half. So the Slingshot has the capacity to match itself up to any of the popular latex that's on the market today. The key things here is take the time to make sure you're looking at your attachments, inspecting it carefully, and checking it before you go shoot. During shooting, take some time to check your bands out. Always look for nicks, tears, any abrasion. When you see those things starting to happen, that's time to repair your bands. Remember, your bands are consumable. You don't get to go out and shoot your .22 rifle without adding more bullets to it. Your bands are the bullets. In essence, it's the expendable and the consumable part of your slingshot shooting. It's the part that gives you your power, and it's the part that's going to give you the most downrange oomph. So really pay attention to it, learn how it works, and take care of it. Okay, so the last two things of note about the ScoutX slingshot that we want to fill you in on are the sighting references and the removable palm swell. So let's start with the sighting references here. So these are fiber optic, and this fiber optic is in two positions. The top position is for an over-the-top orientation. So if you have your bands mounted as shown right here in the over-the-top orientation, you would normally sight down the band. This top reference becomes the edge of the band. It lines up perfectly with it, and that becomes your sighting reference. Now, why do we call it a sighting reference and not a sight? Because a sighting system is composed of two parts, the rear sight and the front sight. So this is fundamentally a front sight. The rear sight is really going to change because that depends on your anchor. If I anchor at the corner of my mouth and you anchor at the base of your chin, we're going to have different points of impact for the same reference point off of this. So this becomes your sighting reference. So the top one is your sighting reference for shooting over the top with the bands mounted to the top of the slingshot. And the one down lower is the one that for through the forks. It lines itself up in the middle of the bands into through the fork orientation. Both of these are effectively your sighting reference that gives you a sense of where your point of impact will be at a given distance with your anchor point. So the key to slingshots is consistency. Find a consistent anchor point. I like to anchor with my thumbnail in the corner of my mouth. Yours might be different. Doesn't matter, just make sure it's the same spot. And then your reference point then becomes something static that works for you at your known distances. Next up, the palm swell. The palm swell is absolutely removable. A lot of people like the engagement they get from having a fuller palm swell. Others do not. Some people enjoy having a thinner profiled slingshot. Removing the palm swell allows the ScoutX to be a very low profile slingshot if you enjoy pocketability. Likewise, you have the capacity to add an optional handle weight to the handle of this slingshot to give it a little bit more density and balance. If that's something that's important to you, that is certainly an option to use with the handle scale. But most importantly, we really enjoy seeing what people do with paracord wraps. So if you're the type of person that enjoys wrapping things in paracord, this gives you a great foundation to make your own paracord handle. And if you make one, please send us pictures. We always love to see those. So there you have it. There's the ScoutX Slingshot. Quick rundown how to get up and running with it. If you ever have questions for anything related to any SimpleShot product, we are here for you. So don't hesitate to reach out. We love doing what we do. We thank you for your support. Get out and share a slingshot with a friend. Thanks for watching.